Okay, sorry, there you go. We are recording. Thank you, Silent Mike. So this is the official calexitnow.org meeting. That's calexitnow.org, calexitnow.org, calexitnow.org. It's where you can find out the information. There's lots of other Calexit groups. We love them all. They're awesome. Some of them are here today. We're going to have them speak, but calexitnow.org. My name is Marcus Ruiz Evans. I'm the one who filed the initiative. I am basically the godfather of Calexit. If you type in my name, Marcus Ruiz Evans, space Calexit, you'll see interviews going back 10 to 12 years. I wrote the first book about Calexit called California's Next Century 2.0. That's available online. That was published in 2012. That was the first book to seriously talk about California being independent. Other people had joked about it. I wrote a book taking it seriously. 2013, Tom Elias is the reporter who caused the recall election of Governor Gray Davis, which shepherded in the governorship of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was quite famous at that time. He wrote an article in LA Daily News called How Would California Do on Its Own? That was published in 2013. That was the first time, hey, Vicky, that was the first time that any mainstream news article ever talked about Calexit in a serious manner. At that time, we were talking about Scottish devolution, but it was still the idea of California as a nation. People found me. We formed Sovereign California, formed Yes California, had a nasty divorce with Yes California, and now we're on Calexit LLC. But as we've always told people, in 2017, Reuters Ipsos and Stanford University, Reuters Ipsos, Stanford University, Little Hoover Institute, highly reputable polling agencies, both went independently. 32% said secession immediately. They did not say, let's talk about it. I want to negotiate. I'm open. They said immediate secession today, 32%. That's 15.5 million people, just to put it in perspective. Now, what the media would not print, but was evident in the Reuters Ipsos and Stanford Hoover Institute surveys, they didn't say, do you support independence or not support it? They said, do you support it, not support it, or aren't sure? The media misrepresented that in 2017 and would say, if only 1/3 of Californians are for it, that must mean 2/3 are against. That is a total lie. That is an absolute lie pushed by the media in 2017. Total, absolute lie. Stanford and Reuters asked 3 questions, not 2. Yes, no, not sure. When you look at the not sure amount for Stanford and Reuters, it's 14.7%, which means in 2017, we had 47.5% of Californians willing to discuss secession. That's why I brought all that up. It's not just a third. 47.5% of Californians were not opposed to secession in 2017. Now, a lot of you are going to ask, hey, this is the second time we're doing, hey, Jason, what's up? Oh, you're in the Capitol? That's awesome. A lot of you are going to ask, Jason's the CEO. We'll get to him in just a second. I'm doing a brief intro. A lot of you are going to ask is like, didn't you try this? And Shankar's here. We're going to get to him. We're going to have Shankar, Coyote, and Hannah speak in a little bit. They're from different Calexit groups. We love them. They'll be speaking. We're all on the same page. 2017, we got really big. But while we were getting big, the media was saying there's something called the resist movement. If you type on Google, you'll see resist movement. What it said was Donald Trump is a fluke. Russia put him in. He doesn't represent a majority of Americans. We can use the federal system to imprison him, bring him to justice, make sure Trumpism is destroyed, etc. So there was literally news articles in 2017, 2018, while we're collecting signatures saying, yeah, Calexit's there, but you don't really need to back him. You can go to resist. It's a less radical option. So resist was our number one opposition to being able to move forward. People who had joined us rightfully saw us as the more radical option. We get that. And they went to resist. The good news now, and the reason why we think now's the best time to Calexit and why we will win now versus 2016 is the resist movement is dead in California. We have 20 minutes of footage from liberals. So After 2 impeachment attempts, 4 to 7 federal prosecutions, he's ran 3 separate terms, committed an insurrection, and is still more popular than ever. Most people in California don't believe the federal system can bring him to justice. You failed too many times to make that work. Secondly, in 2016, Calexit was telling people Trump was elected. This is Trump's America. Nobody in California wanted to hear that. No one. Hell no, Mark. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. You're wrong. This isn't Trump's America. We at Calexit were saying Hillary won the popular vote by the margin of California alone, which means outside of California, over half of your fellow Americans did vote for Trump. Nobody in California wanted to hear that. Only us diehard Calexiters were saying that. Hell no, he doesn't represent America. He's a fluke. Russia put him in. This is not America. This is not America. Now, no one says that. In the email you all have, we have 20 minutes of footage, liberals, podcasters, mainstream news, talk show hosts, etc. And it goes, oh my God, 3 elections? An insurrection, he's more popular? What country are we part of? Everybody in California is finally where Calexit alone was in 2016. The main opposition to our movement is now dead. Nobody thinks the justice system can bring this man to justice. Nobody thinks you're going to end Trumpism in a minute. Nobody thinks that this isn't Trump's America. So now we're ready to get to work and we can all focus and we're not going to be infighting amongst ourselves, which is what we did last time. That's why this is the best time to Calexit. Also, you may have heard that Republicans don't like us in California. Raise the hands, or if you could do the virtual hand. How many have heard that California Republicans don't like Californians? Raise your hand. Have you ever heard that? You can do a virtual hand. If you don't know what I'm talking about, do this frown face. Oh, what are you talking about, Mark? I don't know. Really? They don't. Oh, looks like a lot of hands. So everybody's heard this, right? Okay, so Donald Trump goes on TV. People are dead. People are homeless. People are destitute. People are beside themselves. We're hurting. We're in pain. And he thinks it's a good idea to go on TV and go, I don't know if I'm going to give you wildfire assistance because I really don't like you guys in your politics. Speaker Johnson said the same thing. In the federal government, it goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House, line of succession. 2 of the top 3 most powerful people said, I don't know if we're going to give you help when you're at your most destitute, California, because we don't really like you. That should not shock you. I've had to inform half of the reporters who called me about a fact that was widely publicized by LA Times last year, 6 months ago. 48% of Republicans don't view Californians as American. How many of you knew that? How many of you knew that over the last year, LA Times did a massive expose showing that they did a survey of all Republicans across America showing that 48, half of all Republicans do not view you as an American. Is it really that shocking that Trump and Johnson would say what they said? Let me ask another question. How many of you can tell me about the Republicans who have come forward and said, I am disgusted that Donald Trump would say this to fellow Americans. I voted for him, but now that is too far. Who's seen those Republicans say that? Raise your hands. Anyone seen? Yeah, it's not really happening. So there's not really a backlash against Trump. There's not a Republican backlash. There's not a bunch of Republicans saying, we're disgusted that you would treat fellow Americans this way. I think that also says something. So we have been telling you guys since 2016, they don't like us. They don't like our culture. They don't like us for who we are. And they're willing to let us suffer. And it's going to have real implications. We've been a donor state since the late 1980s. That means we pay more in federal income taxes than we ever get. We get about 75 cents for every dollar in federal income tax we send. 35 states are subsidized by California. I'll get to you, Shane and Gabriel, in just 1 second. 35 states are subsidized by us. Those states are primarily in the South and the Midwest, and they don't like us. They're typically full of Republicans. I have Republicans in my family, by the way, so let's just get that clear. I love them. They're great. But we're also aware of the politics here. 35 states are conservative. They don't like us. If we went to Congress and asked for permission to leave, which is the way you can legally secede, we believe we would automatically get the votes. We also believe that this is the best time to Calexit for that reason. The Republicans are in the most power they've ever been in close to a century. So they have the trifecta government, and they won the popular vote. That occasionally happens. What doesn't happen is control of the Supreme Court along with control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You got to go back to basically the 1930s or 1920s to find when a political party had that much power, or about 100 years ago. So what you need to know is the Republicans are the most powerful they've been in about a century. That's because they own the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is now the most conservative it's been in 90 years, according to judicial scholars at NPR. So the Republicans have way more power than they've ever had in generations. And they hate us. And they have the votes to let us go. Now, here's the other thing you need to know. Secession is legal. Secession is 100% legal. Real quick, I'm going to go to Gabriel and then we'll get back to it. Gabe, what's your question, sir, or comment? Okay, well,
go ahead, Mark. Mark, keep go ahead. We're listening.
Okay. Sorry, I just saw the hand up. If you put a hand up, I'll call on you. Republicans have the power they need for us to be voted out. How many of you have heard of the court case Texas versus White? Raise your hand. Who's heard of Texas versus White? Okay. So there's a lot of lawyers who will go on TV and lie. NBC television did it this weekend. I saw them. They covered our initiative. It's great. And then they go at the very end, secession will require a constitutional amendment. That is a lie. That is a straight up lie. In 2017, we had 5 different lawyers come on television and lie and say that Texas versus White doesn't exist and secession is illegal. That was a lie. We also got into a fight with a man named as David A. Carrillo. David A. Carrillo runs the Constitution Center at UC Berkeley. He's one of the top lawyers in all of California teaching people constitutional law. He said Texas versus White doesn't exist. We didn't back down. A year later, he had to admit publicly he was wrong. So why are we correcting people who run constitutional law centers out of UC Berkeley? Why are multiple lawyers lying about this? Why is NBC television lying about this? All of you can go online right now and type in Texas versus White. It exists. It is the only Supreme Court case on secession. It came after the Civil War, which means it is legal precedent. That's the way the legal system works. So Texas versus White says you can secede. Hey, John, going to call on you in a second. Great to see you. Shankar, Coyote, John, Hannah, great to see you guys. Texas versus White says you can secede with, quote, consent of the states. Another lie that you will see out there is Texas versus White says you can't secede, period. That's a lie. Texas versus White says you cannot unilaterally secede, meaning shoot your way out. It also says you, quote, can secede with, quote, consent of the states, period. Lawyers are going to lie to you and say that case doesn't exist, including constitutional scholars and people who run law schools at major UC schools. And lawyers are going to lie to you and say it doesn't have consent of the states into it. That's all a lie. This is why we filed the initiative 3 times. It wasn't to be a failure. It was to prove that our understanding of the law was correct. We had Kamala Harris. Who's heard of Kamala Harris? Raise your hand. Anybody heard of Kamala Harris? Okay. When Kamala Harris was Attorney General, she personally approved of our Calexit petition to secede. And she cited Texas versus White and that it says consent to the states. I think she's right. Who's ever heard of Javier Becerra? Javier Becerra works for the Biden administration. He too, as Attorney General, approved of our initiative and said Texas versus White exists and consent to the states exists. And then Kathleen Keenely did it, and now Rob Bonta. So it exists. We had to force the government to admit it, and we had to call out lawyers who would lie. So just so that you know, you're going to see a lot of people saying, not true, not true. Ask them, are you aware of Texas versus White, and are you aware of the phrase consent to the states? They're going to shut up immediately. So you need to know that, because a lot of people are going to tell you that even being here makes you crazy and you can't secede and there's no way and the Civil War settled it. That's all a lie. Texas versus White came after the Civil War. That makes it legal precedent. The Supreme Court justice who cited it was Salmon P. Chase. Who personally appointed Salmon P. Chase as Supreme Court justice while he was alive as president? Who knows the answer?
Lincoln.
This man personally appointed Salmon P. Chase as Supreme Court justice while he was alive.
It was Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, that's right.
Right.
So if anybody wants to talk about the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln himself personally appointed Salmon Chase, who personally oversaw Texas versus White and said consent to the states is there.
Marcus, can I take up the Texas versus White thing later? Because I think you actually,
later.
As a lawyer, I think you're a little off, but I'd like to explain it better.
I completely disagree, but we can cover that later. Okay. We'll cover it later. Promise. We can get into it. For the record, you can all check it out. Texas versus White, consent to the states. Now you need to hear about someone called Erwin Chemerinsky. This is all going to make sense. This is all making sense. By the way, everything I'm telling you is in the email you already have in your email box. Everything. It's all there. Erwin Chemerinsky is the top constitutional scholar in all of California. You can type him in. He's also the most cited legal expert in all of America. He said in 2017, when asked about Calexit, quote, a simple majority vote of Congress could be all that's required. I'm going to go with the top constitutional scholar in all of California and the top legal expert in all of America and say he's probably right. Since consent to the states has not been defined since 1872, nobody can say exactly what it means. This scholar is saying a simple majority vote could be all that it requires. So if any lawyer tells you it means an amendment, it has to. They can't say that, and there's no legal evidence for that. So Texas versus White says consent to the states. It does not say consent only through the amendment process. Doesn't say that. The amendment process was known for a full 100 years before this court case was made. If you meant the amendment process, why didn't you say that? Right? It's not like you don't know. And we have a constitutional scholar saying simple majority. Here's how this all comes together.
Well, 1 second, Marcus, because I
Real
have
quick.
1 point to throw in, is that there is a legal stipulation that any sort of law it's the plain speech rule, that any sort of legal anything has to also be broken down so that people who are not legal scholars can understand exactly what is and is not being said. And that if they do not implicitly say something, it is for a reason. They did not choose to say the amendment process. They knew about it. They did not say it. Therefore, that is not what they meant very clearly. Because if they meant it, they had to include it. It's not included. Therefore, they did not mean that.
And these are all legal interpretations. Who knows who gets to decide what the final definition of the law is? Who gets to decide in America? Hannah, you've already had a bunch of answers, Hannah. You're doing awesome. Who knows, Mike? Who gets to decide what the interpretation of the law is in America according to the Constitution?
Supreme Court.
That's right. The Supreme Court is now beholden to Trump. Trump hates California. See where I'm going with this? The Republicans own the House, the Senate, the presidency. They don't like us. They literally told you, we don't view you as American. They literally said, we'll cut you off. Half those Supreme Court justices are beholden to Trump. So we think if California approaches Congress now and asks for consent, we're overwhelmingly going to get the votes. It is possible to secede. You have to get permission, consent. That is not defined as the amendment process. It may mean that, but only a Supreme Court can say that, not any lawyer. That's how the law works. The Supreme Court is basically pro-Trump. Trump hates us. 35 states are conservative. We only need 25. Erwin Chemerinsky said, simple majority vote. See how this all fits together? They don't like us. We want out. We have overwhelming amounts of votes right now. In fact, we have more votes than we need to leave. If California has this initiative and we have a vote and we say a majority of Californians want to go, we have already achieved the international legal precedent of saying we want to leave. The only next step is to approach Congress and ask for permission to leave. That is how you legally secede. A lot of people are going to be on TV, and they're going to be your friends and family and relatives, and they're going to laugh and go, "You're wrong, you can't secede." That is a lie. Texas versus White, consent to the states, Erwin Chemerinsky. All the citations are an email you have. By the way, you also have a 30-minute video I already made where I show you screenshots of everything I'm saying. So if you're like, I don't know if Mark's telling the truth, 30-minute video in your email right now, screenshots of literally everything. Texas versus White, Erwin Chemerinsky, Republicans don't like us, LA survey, Mike Johnson statements, Trump statements, everything. Watch the video. That's why we made it. I apologize for the granular video. We didn't have access to our studio. Here's the dirty secret with initiatives in California. Nobody qualifies them with grassroots means, and nobody has done that in 2 decades. So whenever you see an initiative and they go, "A new initiative qualified, Californians want that," that's not what that means. What happened was a millionaire bought or spent $2 to $3.5 million to hire paid signature gatherers who get about $1 to $3 per signature. And so you'll see things and they go, "Californians are for this idea." That doesn't mean that. Somebody rich with money put 2 to 3 million down and buy the paid signature gatherers. However, that's also to our benefit. So a lot of reporters said, "Hey, Mark, didn't you guys fail last time? Why are you doing it?" Well, we failed because the resist movement took away our members. Remember I covered that? That's now dead. We have no competition. Let me remind, who's ever heard of marijuana legalization? Who's heard of gay marriage legalization? Who's heard of stem cell legalization? All 3 of those passed the way that we're going to do this. So I had to remind a bunch of reporters this. When marijuana legalization got started, everybody in California thought it was a joke. There were multiple groups pursuing it with multiple initiatives like the ones that we filed. Everybody laughed at them. You can't even get your act together and form one group. You can't even decide on one initiative. Guess what? Marijuana is legal today. So all that criticism about you're not organized and it took you multiple times, it took them 10 years with multiple initiative attempts and multiple groups, and they won. So if anybody's like, "This is your second time," just like gay marriage, marijuana, and stem cell research, which all worked out eventually. So gay marriage and marijuana, I keep bringing them up. Marijuana got about 150 to 250,000 signatures. Then Sean Parker. Who knows who Sean Parker is? Sean Parker, who created Napster. Napster was the first online music thing. Yeah, Sean Parker. Sean Parker goes, "I want to be cool. I have a cool music program. I want people to think I'm cool. What can I do to promote my name and my brand?" I know if I was the guy who got marijuana legalized, everybody under 30 would think I'm cool and buy my music download software. So Sean Parker dumped $2.5 million into marijuana legalization, and that's what got the other 2/3 of the signatures. Marijuana legalization is wildly popular in California. They still could not connect all the signatures, and they had to get 2/3 through an angel donor. Let's go to gay marriage. So Prop 8 was a plan to ban gay marriage in California. There was an alternate proposition to stand against that. Same thing. Multiple LGBTQ groups, multiple petitions filed over multiple years. Ha ha ha. So silly. Gay marriage is legal now. They got about 1/3 of the signatures. Then a millionaire out of New York City, who is an LGBTQ man and created, I think, GeoCities, dropped 2.5 mil. Then we can fast forward to stem cell research for autistic children the last few years, which was backed by multiple nurses. Still, about 1/3 of the signatures, angel donor. So when you see these popular causes, they never actually got all the grassroots signatures, and that's for things as popular as gay marriage and marijuana. What they did was they made a showing of about 150,000 to 200,000 signatures, which is a lot of people. The reporters covered that. Rich people who are angel donors saw that in the news and came swooping in. Guess which state has the highest concentration of millionaires in it? Anybody know the answer? Which state has the highest concentration of millionaires in all of America?
California.
Okay. Which state has the highest amount of angel donor investment in any state in America?
California.
Okay.
Power is just being an LA native, born and raised here. Really understanding politics. I worked a lot with the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016. So a lot of like grassroots organizing. What else? I also happen to work in film and television, so I have a very specific sort of network. But yeah, I'm just excited to meet more people here in Los Angeles and Southern California and see what ideas what we can come up with together to make this happen and get those signatures.
That's great. Jay,
And
say something in for a minute, and then I'm going to wrap it up.
we are working on getting some more company emails put together for folks like Vicky. We do request that you don't use so much of your own personal phone number and email and whatnot, partly because, you never know. The world's a scary place. America is a very scary place. I think we can all agree. So we're doing it, one, to protect our fellow Californios, but two, because we are actually a company, and so we do have to meet certain standards. So this is everyone's one reminder now, and then you'll get one once you get your email. Please only use it for stuff that you would want the CEO, your mother, and God to see.
We don't
I'll put it
endorse
that.
particular religious deity.
We also, everyone got to meet Jennifer earlier. Jennifer Hines
Jenny.
Jenny will be our compliance person. Just consider her the compliance officer for right now.